Hey everyone, now I can see myself. Welcome to the stream, community stream for Battle Legion. Please let me know if you can hear me well. As always, if that's the case, we'll be able to start. But as always, I always try to check that everyone can hear me. And yeah, once I get that confirmation, we'll get things going. I hope you're all doing wonderfully. We didn't have a stream in bit, which is why today is a boosted fight night. Um, and there should be another stream next week, but I will come to that later. Can you guys hear me? I see that a few people were waiting. Let me see if my stream is properly updating. Hey, Matt Remar, yeah, I can see that you're saying you can hear me. That's perfect. The chat was not dating well, which happens at time, but this is the way it is. Great. I will wait for a few minutes for everyone to join, as always, and then we'll be able to start. As you know, there is plenty to talk about today. It's been a bit of a troubled time for Battle Legion, and I hope we'll be able to clarify anything that is unclear at the moment and discuss what have been the latest changes. For those that didn't see it, I posted just like half an hour ago or such an announcement, a lengthy one, a very long announcement that goes into depth into what is happening with the league rewards, what is coming up, talking about the seasonal challenges, the new exclusive boost that will come up there. We're talking about dropping, we're talking about the Bronze League wall. There are a lot of things that have been mentioned in there. If you haven't seen that yet, haven't you didn't have the time to read it, I would advise for you guys to go and check it out. Most likely, it will clear out a lot of stuffs, and things should be easier for you to check then. Um, yeah, just waiting 1 or 2 more minutes, and we'll be starting. For today, we have around 30 something players in the easy mode, a bit more than usual, and we will have 50 people in the more advanced mode, and then we will have more people, around 50 as well, um, in the recorded fight night that will come the next or upcoming days overall. Okay, so yeah, I think we will be able to start. For now, I see that two people are joining in. I'm sorry, sometimes you might you might oh, actually there's my dog behind me. Sorry, I saw just the door being opened. Sorry. That's okay. For those that never saw my dog, I don't know if you can see it. Oh wait, the other way around. I always forgot that uh it's moved this way. Oh, actually you can see everything but its head, so that's kind of pointless, I guess. But there's a dog lying around here. Anyway, so I see that with, I think it's Doskan, right? That is asking us, oh, telling us that the game looks exactly the same after a year of updates. Welcome to the chat. I get it. That's a fair claim. In all honesty, there's been a lot of things that were done in the last year, but I think everyone at Godspeed Games would agree that it's not big things and not big enough for what we had initially in mind. Indeed, there's no looking for excuses or whatever. Um, I think the explanations as to why things didn't go as fast as we wanted for bigger features are fairly simple. The main one being that we've been facing some unexpected technical difficulties that definitely put us back a little, and the decision was made quite some time ago, and we already talked about that, to make sure we would still deliver smaller stuffs in the meantime. So that's very true that lately you've seen mostly smaller stuffs coming in, um, and not necessarily the shiniest ones. But there's still things that happened. If we want to just look at things a bit within the last year, the um, the units leveling was increased. We've added a ton of new content in terms of units and in terms of new power stones. There's been indeed, um, sorry guys, there's been indeed changes to the cosmetics. We've been adding new ads placement, which I know some players don't like, but is also helping the players that do not invest money into the game to progress faster. There's the global red boss, which obviously is not finished and fully fleshed yet, but that's a bigger feature in its own on its own. Sorry, and there's the new ones that were just announced today as well. I mean, it's not the full list. There are many, many things in there. But I know it's not necessarily the shiniest or the biggest ones. Everyone wants Clan Wars to come. Everyone wants a fully fleshed and fully functionable global red boss and other elements to come. That's a fair assessment to bring that up. No problem, Matt Remar. We'll have the opportunity to talk sometime soon, I guess. Guys, before I take the next wave of comments, I will start the fight night to make sure that we get things going. Just checking that it's the good account that I'm on, that has the fight night on. Sorry, that is the case. So we should be ready to start. Let's go. There we go. First player would be Antorium. We have Valdion Ladok, Anaquek. We have Balek Maldwin. Nice pun. We have Big Booney. We have Annie Viper Alt, which is the alternate account, I suppose. We have Gustav. We have Mario, Aurelius, and that's for the top 10. The top first guys will be facing. So those games you were mentioning that there were never a shortage of units in the game. Adding newer ones so frequently was always a bad idea. In your opinion, most of the units fall into obscurity. To some extent, that's true. Um, I would say there are two things to that. The first one is that at this point, new units are still the bread and butter of the game. This is what is driving the sales and driving activity. So both on the revenue and activity side, anytime we have new units, we see more activity. And we can confirm that because we tried releasing new units only at the beginning of the era. We tried releasing them on the first and third season or in the second and fourth, etc. We've seen that it doesn't really matter. Anytime we release new units, there's an increase in activity, there's an increase in revenues. Now, it doesn't mean that we'll go forever with new units, and especially at this pace, that's something I already discussed quite a few times. It's not making sense at some point to have 200 units or whatever in the game. But in order for us to drift a bit away from the addition of units, we need to have other mechanism in place that are driving both the activity and the revenues. Those systems being obviously a clan war systems, that's the biggest one, but even a different layer of progression past level 150. So I'm talking about not just going to level 160 or anything like this, because that wouldn't really make sense at this point, but more of offering another way to progress into the game for those that will get to that point, because there's a point where we'll have more and more players with level 150 units, and we want to still give them something to progress to. And at the same time, we also want to make it faster for people to get to level 150 so that new players can also experiment that. So we'll have to find a new progression system there. That's for sure. There's something be done there. That's a given, indeed. Um, for the units that fell into obscurity, that's also very true. That's precisely why we are actually releasing not only one unit per hero, but two at the moment. It's because sometimes both units perform quite well because we hit the right spot. Sometimes one of them, most of the time, one of them. And sometimes we have eras where the two units don't perform that great. And you would say or think, oh, it's just a matter of knowing the game and what player wants and the meta. Um, and it's partially true. There are definitely units where we kind of didn't work, but there's also a point where it doesn't. There's a point where even if you know the game perfectly, you cannot predict precisely how the units will be adapted. The main reason for that being emergent gameplay. There are builds that are kind of known, and we know what new unit could work for them, etc. There are also new builds that still come up regularly with completely different strategy and completely different setup of units. And whenever we have a unit that can create a new or alter a famous type of build, that's when we hit the right spot. But it's a lot harder to predict because it's not only about finding those strategies, it's also about having players adopting them. And for it to be successful, it has to be adopted by enough players, which means you need enough players to have the other units for that build, proper artifacts you need, etc. So that's why it's not that easy, but that's a valid point. Kim, you're mentioning war, and war never changes. Um, that's true. That there's not been much changes on that regard at this point, both for the actual battle mechanic of the game, but also for the war system that we would like to have, which is the clan wars. And yeah, that's just the way it is. Clan war mechanism is something super heavy, super long to develop, but also super long to properly design, and that takes time. It's something we've said from the get-go that it would not be something you would see very fast. It did got delay a bit more than we've expected. That's also um, pretty clear, but that's still something we are heavily working towards, and I hope you guys will be able to get some more details on that rather soon. Descan, you're saying that a better system for skin could be a big improvement. Remove the wardrobe system and make it so players can buy whatever they want. Most successful games use this system. Yeah, I would only partially agree to that. It's true that if you have a system where you can pick exactly what you want, it does perform better. But it's only true if you have less of the currency that you need. Long story short, if we were to give people the opportunity to pick exactly what they want, we would need to either make the costs in Eternite way higher or to give way less at Eternite. And actually, giving way less Eternite wouldn't work because the new players would be completely screwed, and because the old players have huge piles of Eternite. So that wouldn't work. So the only system that could work would be to make it way more expensive. But when I say way more expensive, it's not a 1-to-5 ratio. We would be more likely in the like of 1-to-10, because um, the problem here with this kind of system is if you have it as a mechanism, since you're giving the opportunity to get the skins for free, you have to make it so that you cannot get it too easily. So either you reduce the amount of this soft currency that you can get, or as I said, you greatly increase the prices, but then it's the new players that would heavily suffer from that. You're saying, yeah, remove it tonight. Why does it even exist? I mean, it's historical, right? We are not the one that made it to be this way initially. And actually, I agree with you that it would have made more sense to have the skins be gems only, because we also give gems regularly in the game, right? It's not like, you have some games where you never get any art currency, as we call it, so any gems or anything like this. You also have games where you have way more of it. Uh, but indeed, since we are giving out gems that could have been the solution from the get-go, it would have also allowed to have a bit less newer skins and make it more of an event when they would come out. And we could have had events where you can use other resources to get skins. Like, you could have, I don't know, every 3 months you have an event where you use your other currencies that you have too many of, and you trade it off to get skins because you don't want to use your gems. That's something that could have worked. Um, the problem is that at this point, it would be rather complicated to get rid of Eternite. When you see the reaction that we've had in the last couple of days for something like the league rewards, which again, the complaints make a lot of sense. We can understand where that comes from. It's easy to understand. But when you see the reaction on getting a bit less of what you're used to, if from one day to the other you cannot get skins except if you're using gem, we have a big chances to get a massive backlash from there as well. So it's kind of something historical that we inherited. But indeed, if it would have been our decision from the get-go, we would have probably not had Eternite, or we would have made it event dependent and temporary. Like, you contribute to a big event that lasts 2 weeks, you're getting Eternite during that event, you use it for skins, but once the event is over, that currency is gone and it moves back to gems or something like this. Um, then keep Eternite, keep wardrobe system, but also add a system where things are buyable with gems. That's something we actually do. As you're saying, buying wardrobes with gems, that's something we do. What I agree with you is that, well, I wouldn't say that it's a joke, but I understand that buying skins with gems, if it's not good ratio, it doesn't feel good. Yeah. So I can understand these complaints, and that's probably something we can improve on. One thing I know we are already working on is to have skins that you can buy for actual money a bit more on the Spellwagon website. We already have some, but that's something we want to keep investing so that you can buy just the skin or a package that makes more sense to you than the ones that are in the game, if that's what you want. Now, regarding having skins for gems only, the one thing is, because the Eternite system exists, we are kind of torn here, because if we make the gem offer too low, the problem we end up is that everyone jumps on it, but we drastically reduce the value of the art itself. Like, if we are making, I'm talking about a gem offer where you get the skin 100% and it's this one, that's it. What I would suggest personally is that we have this running, but not all the time, on specific occasions, to have like, hey, you have this skin right now that it's there. Um, uh, to have it there. So I think it's something we could do. I bring it up to the team. The thing is, I would have to see with them what the balancing would look like, because if we have to go that way, but that gets very, very expensive in gems, then that wouldn't work, and we have to make sure that it's properly balanced. But that's something we can look into for sure. Eternite Extravaganza will come back, Mr. Undercover Anonymous. That's for sure. The Eternite Extravaganza will come back. That's a good system for us, because it's kind of a win-win situation. Like most of the extravaganza, and those will return. We had a first run, kind of saw which ones were sticking, which ones need to be reworked. So that's what we're doing now, but they will return. The benefit of the Eternite extravaganza is that it's a win-win where we get players to use the Eternite they kept for a long time, and players get to get skins, which is also pretty much what they want from the Eternite. Uh, I have and I have the feeling that they're getting it at a better cost than usual. So it's overall it's a win-win. It's not perfect, obviously, but that's a win-win we have. I'm checking. I think we are done now. Yes, we are done. Sorry, I will stop there. Yeah, actually, we had a few more uh, accounts there, but we are done. So yeah. Hey, Gorkamorka, you're actually streaming at the moment? What? Or do you mean that this stream is busy? In any case, if you're streaming at this moment, enjoy. Uh, I am now officially your competition then. And if you're not streaming and if you're just talking about this one, yes, it's busy. There's a bit more people in the chat than usual, and that's quite great. So thank you guys for exchanging with us a bit more. Duskan, yeah, just to continue, you were saying that indeed, ironically, you're saying, yeah, oh, it feels great to uh, oh yeah, sorry, you're sorry, I read it first and then I was trying to read it back and I knew it was ironic, but not in that way. So yeah, it feels great to buy some kind of battleground with gems. What you don't like is to pay for a wardrobe with gems to have a 1% chance of getting it. I get it. One aspect though that you have to also keep in mind is that this will differ from players to players. If we think about newer players, their chance of getting skins when there's an offer for gem is way higher than 1%, right? So it is true that the older players that already have tons of skins, it's harder for them to get new ones, both for Eternite or for gems. And that's why for them it makes sense to have gems offers. I think I think that we could have a system for that, something that happens from time to time, maybe not constantly, maybe have offers there. Maybe, here's a suggestion. What about having this included in the infamous merchant system that we want to get going into the game? What I mean by this is that it would mean you go into the sorry, I thought I clicked on confirm, but I didn't. That would mean you go to the merchant, and out of the different proposals that you would have from time to time, you would have a skin that you don't have offered for gems, or even maybe for other resources. Like you could have a skin offered for 100 portal keys or whatever that would be, and you know it's up for you to decide, hey, I like this offer or not. I don't know if the system could work for to guarantee that the one displayed would be one that you don't have, but in that case, if it's an offer for a skin you already have, you don't care, so you just have to get on with it. But well, if it's an offer for one that you don't have, then you would have a way to exchange it. I think that's actually probably a good way to have these kind of offers coming in and keeping it not coming um, too often yet. Um, Gorkamoka, you're asking when the GRB beta is ending and will there be new red tokens? Um, Ideally, it should start with the next era. I'm saying ideally because we're just finishing the last element on this, mostly because um, when it goes out of beta, it will be with a new boss. So it won't be the Chimera anymore. It will be a different one with very different skills. One thing I can tell you is that we are looking at a boss that will really move. So that means a red boss that will go to your side of the battlefield and move around, etc. I'm not saying more because I don't want to spoil everything, but that's what we're working on. So there's the new boss, and there's the different elements we are still working on to fix. The main change will be that we are um, changing the winning and losing mechanism, so there won't be this system anymore. That means from now on, we are not looking at if you guys can collectively defeat the boss, etc., because this system was too complicated. It created a lot of frustration when some players would invest a ton of portal keys and only get uh, rewards that they didn't even see they were supposed to get because the boss was not defeated or something like this. So we will get rid of that part. What you will get is there's a list of rewards based on the leaderboards, you're getting it, and that's it. So that's what will be in there from the get go. We will also be adding, that's the plan for the launch, a clan leaderboard. The details on how it will work, I cannot give you all of it yet, but I can tell you that it won't just be a sum of the damages done by the entire clan or something like this. It will be a bit more complex than that to make it a bit more fair. Long story short, but there will be these clan leaderboards, and indeed we're looking at changing the portal keys to a different set of portal keys, which means as well that at the beginning it might be a bit off because you guys will only get the portal keys regenerating every couple of hours like you used to have at the beginning in uh, the red boss. It's only because after so long you accumulated so many rewarded portal keys that it ended up changing. So that would be something, on the longer run, you will get some of the portal keys added to events, etc. So it will get easier. It is very likely that we would probably even include portal keys uh, of that new genre, even to the rewards of some events, so that basically you're invited to contribute to all of the events, to make the best out of it. But that's roughly how it's planned. Just a second, making sure everything is set up there. Yes, we can go live. Yes, because otherwise we have a lot to talk about today, so it's a bit messier than usual. There we go. We have Matthias. Let me see. Yes. So we have Matthias first. We will have illu, TheSciur, Randu, Evan, Praetor, Noobimus Prime, Graydinald, Zatos, Kaos IV, Gamer, Væringr, Shiver, and Mykill Myerz will be the top. The first 15 players will be fighting today. Can you show a spoiler of the new boss? No, no, not yet. Sorry, I cannot. And actually, even myself, I only saw concept arts of this one. It's finished, but I did not yet have the opportunity to see it fully in action yet. So this, I cannot show you a spoiler for today. Hopefully, well, maybe in the next stream, since there will be one next week, maybe it will be ready, but I can't know for sure. I know the concept art that was shared with us, I cannot because um, concept arts, I don't know if you've ever worked with concept artists, but the way it works is that you have a table of references and the concept art in the middle. So if I was to share just quickly what I have, that would show you all of the influences that came into it, including maybe some more famous licenses or anything like this. It's not like we are copying a style of something, but just we take references to look at how we want it to work. And that's, I cannot show that. And I don't really have the opportunity to crop it and keep it in high resolution, etc. Usually, when I share a concept art, it's because I asked the artist to make it look great for us to share it with players. But once we have it, I'll make sure to share some details about that. Again, I'm not 100% sure that it will be ready right for the next era, but that's so far the deadline that we're working with. Okay, guys, do we have any other questions? Otherwise, I will go a bit further into the whole situation with the league rewards and the frustration that comes with it, the different reasons behind this change, but also what we are looking at to make it better. Long story short, we are not going to resume uh, the system or turn it back to what it was, um, for a simple reason that it's not healthy for the game on the longer run. Um, the way it works right now means that if you were a player that joined the game 3, 4 years ago, um, well, 3 years ago, let's say, you were able to progress through the game, which makes sense. And obviously, because you were there for a longer time, you have more units created, you have your artifacts way higher, potentially even because you started to improve your artifacts before the changes made to the artifacts. And so you're in a position where usually you will be amongst the top players. When I say top players, I'm not saying you're necessarily in the top 50 of the game, right? But you will be within the top cohort of players. And if you're within the top cohort of players for a long time, you reach a point where you can kind of stay within the league you're in because you are kind of facing opponents of the same level as you, and you are collecting all of the rewards for all of the previous leagues, which means if you compare yourself to a player that would be like 2 leagues below you, the effort it would need for this player 2 leagues below you to reach the point where you are and be able to maintain themselves here is getting more and more exponential with every single season that passes on, which is why the system that um, Traplight put in was not a problem when they released it. It becomes a problem now because there's been 50 plus seasons, right? And that's, or 30 plus seasons, sorry. No, 30 eras. So yeah, like hundreds of seasons, sorry. You end up in this situation where, because the top guys are getting more and more rewards, even if they stay within the exact same league or even drop a little, you are constantly making them stronger, right? At the same time, these new players, because there's no new progression in place yet, etc., they don't really have much to invest on. So anytime there's a new unit, it will be easier for them to level it up. And that means those guys in the top leagues are really hard to catch on. To put it into perspective, it means a player that joined just a year ago would have to spend, in terms of time, energy, dedication, and potentially money, up to 10 times more to catch up on those guys. So that means if you were able to get to those leagues in 3 years, a brand new players would probably need 6 to 7 years to get there because of the competition with the top guys that keep on getting more. It's kind of, this famous uh, this famous paradox between Hercules and the turtle, right? To say like, hey, if Hercules was to run a fight against a turtle, um, the turtle will always win because if you give 10 meters of advance to the turtle, even if Hercules is way faster than the turtle, by the time it reaches the turtle have advanced a little more. and then Hercules needs to catch up on that, and it advances a little more, etc. Of course, that's really hypothetical, but this is kind of what happens with the system of the league rewards. We got into a point where for a newcomer to be able to catch up on the old guys, it's barely impossible. Even if they were spending an insane amount of money, they would not get there. In a way, the fact that they cannot get there just by spending an insane amount of money, it's okay. But if a super dedicated player that learns all the strategy, that plays super actively, that does everything, cannot get anywhere near where you are after 3 or 4 years of playing, is still going to be way behind, that gets into a problematic situation where the old guard will never catch up. So that's one of the reasons why we made these changes. The second one is that we've always believed, and since the very first day we took over the game, we've been clear about that, that rewards should be granted for activity or being involved in the game. That's why we've added ads instead of giving free stuffs to help the players that are not spending money in the game. Because we consider that if you're watching an ad, you're contributing to the game economy, you get your reward. If we are granting stuffs completely for free, then that means you don't need to contribute to the game much to get it. And that's the sad part, is that with this new system, you have roughly 2% of the league players only. If we look at the entire number of players, it's probably less than 1% that are getting slightly less rewards with this new system. But they're still getting more rewards than everyone else, right? And on top of that, we are adding seasonal challenges that will be easier for those guys than they are for the rest of the players. So they still get an edge. And ultimately, even with just the current edge that they have, it would still take years and years for anyone to really catch up on this. Oh, we have a bit of a we had a bit of a frame rate drop there. So it's gonna take anyway a super long time for anyone to catch up on the oldest players. But if we make it so that the rewards are there for being active, the rewards are there for competition, then it's a different story. That's why one thing we cannot confirm yet because we're still working on it, but we would like to have is an actual um, season ranking, season individual ranking with actual rewards. The sole reason why we don't have it yet is because we need to see how we would determine um, the the ranking. Because if we just look, at how many fights you won, since there's no energy limit in Battle Legion, technically someone could just be spinning all day and they will always end up first because even if they lose 90% of the time, the 10% they win would still be way more fights than someone that plays a lot less, right? So we need to look most likely at the winning ratio or actually at the points in the season. Uh, but we need to tweak it a bit and see if the points by itself won't generate situations where it would get possible um, to kind of bypass the system in a way. But if we can get it done with the points, we'll try to do this. Having rewards for ranking, that's a competition thing that drives people to be active. It makes sense that you get rewards if you're active, and especially on the competitive side. The seasonal challenges, it's like, yeah, we're giving you rewards because you were there in the game, you did all the stuffs that everyone does to be active in the game. The players that we need to uh, better focus on are the ones that are really not involved much with the game anymore, that only log in to collect rewards, make a few fights to make sure they keep their um, their level in the league, and that's it. No, 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 no. No, Gorkamoga, we will never implement an energy system for the PvP. Maybe, as I already mentioned, that's something we would look at for the journey levels, uh, but not for the PvP. Never. That's against the principle of the games. So no, that's not what I was thinking about. What I meant mostly is that if we were to only look at fights, that could be like the number of fights won, that would be problematic. But more than likely, the season points are accurate enough to show who is the best or the best. I mean, everything is debatable, but you know what I mean. Who was the highest point scorer in the season? But no, we are not planning to have energy system for the PvE. It wouldn't make sense. It would kill the game instantly. So yeah, no, we're not planning on doing that at all. Okay, guys, I don't know if you have other questions. Let me know. Um, in the meantime, since I was mentioning the seasonal challenges, I would like to give some more explanation to that. The seasonal challenges are going to be something fairly simple, and I'm sure most players will actually benefit from it rather easily. It's kind of like your daily quests and your weekly quests. It's simply asking you to do some tasks. You get points, and for a certain number of points, you unlock rewards. And if you have enough points, you collect the final reward, which will be a big boost. The boost will be a boost that applies to you in PvP to your entire army. So that would be maybe an offensive boost or a defensive boost. It is possible that it gets a bit more specific. So we could have a season where the boost is actually on uh, distant attacks, or the boost could be on, uh, close attacks. That's something we melee attacks. Sorry, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. It could be something that is more uh, catered towards melee or something else. The idea would be that it should add a bit of strategy in uh, each of the seasons, and also the point for us is that it should um, help with the Bronze League wall. So the Bronze League wall, it's this famous issue with the game where when you enter the Bronze League, you're facing a ton of inactive, stronger accounts. Um, because they're inactive, they will not get the boost. So at least a player that gets into Bronze League will have the advantage of having this boost active for part of the season that should help them progress a bit within the leagues. On top of that, we are also working on changing the duration that you're staying in the matchmaking when you are inactive with your account. I cannot tell you yet how long you will remain in the matchmaking because we're still doing some tests to have at least a certain amount of players in every league. But that's at the moment, to get out of the matchmaking, you need a year. So that's super long. It made sense to be set up this way because that was making sense when you had a smaller pool of players when the leagues were first introduced. And at this point, it doesn't make much sense anymore. We will reduce that drastically. I think, um, if I'm not mistaken, the settings I've seen used were 1 year. So I believe that this is what it's set at currently. If it's 1 year, we'll get it down to probably 3 months or 2 months or something like this. Technically, it's not penalizing the player that is inactive anyway from the matchmaking because as soon as they will turn back into the game, they will be put back in. Um, it could actually even be an advantage for a player that leave the games for 2 months and or 3 months and returns, because then they won't necessarily be back to bronze by then. If they've been taken out of the matchmaking after a few seasons, they might have not been down to bronze yet. So when they would return at a slightly higher league, which would be good for them as well. So that's something we need to check indeed. But yeah, that's something that will help with the bronze league um, bronze league wall overall. Between this and the boost and the new structure of the leagues as well, in terms of progression, we believe that this should definitely help lowering this issue. Okay, guys, do you have other questions? Also need to check where we're at. Sounds pretty good so far. Thank you. I think it's not an ideal situation we're in right now, and it's mostly our fault. Uh, as we mentioned in the um, as we mentioned in ah the announcement. Sorry, I was losing my words there. We do acknowledge that we could have released things in a different order, right? Maybe it would have makes more sense to either wait for the full system to be there and release everything at once. I think it was not really realistic because there's so many elements that it might have been a recipe for disaster to have all of it released at once. But we should have at least then be able to tell to the players from the get-go, hey, phase one is this and this and this. Phase two coming in 2 seasons, it's this and this and this. Phase three coming in 4 seasons, it's this and this and this, for example. And potentially, I think we should have at least exchanged some stuffs out. Um, for example, I personally think, and that's something we discussed with the team, we would have had better feedback overall if we released the seasonal challenges first and then made the changes to the rewards, especially if from the get-go when doing the seasonal challenges, we announced there would be changes to the rewards, etc. So yeah, that's the thing. Matrimar, you're asking if you missed anything important. Yes, League Bronze Wall, because I know that's one of your favorite topic. A few things we announced very quickly in the announcement, but so that everyone hears it again for the League Bronze Wall. We're going to change the period of inactivity before you you are taken out of the matchmaking. Right now, it was 1 year. It will be moved most likely to 3 months, something like this. So that should be a massive change. The other element is boost that you will be able to unlock when you finish the seasonal challenges. So every season you will be able to finish the seasonal challenges. It's rather easy. It's kind of like the daily or weekly quest. It's nothing extraordinary to finish. But when you do, you will get a boost, either a defensive or an offensive boost, depending on the season. It will be the same boost for everyone, but that means the the active players will have benefit over the inactive ones. So for the Bronze League, that will definitely um, help on that regard. We think that it will also add a bit of dynamic because if you start the season with one army and realize midway that you're unlocking um, a boost that would work better with another. So those are two of the main things that should help for the League Bronze Wall. The other parts being the different progression that there is now between the leagues, which make it easier for players to climb, which means the top guys that were dropping recently, they would probably get to newer leagues way higher indeed. Um, yeah, and then for the other elements, the main point of frustration for the whole announcement is, of course, the league rewards, as we discussed earlier, not being able to collect absolutely all of them. But as I was saying, it's not a system that was sustainable on the very long run when you have players coming in years after the others. Ultimately, there's a reason why you don't really see that in most games. It's because if you're giving way more to any player that has been there for years than any newer one that would spend the exact same amount of time and energy and even revenues into the game, you end up with this frustration. Like, we have to make sure newer players that are super invested should be able to catch up, even if it takes time. Right now, that's why you don't see any newer players in the very top league. It's only very old players because with every season they collected so much more than everyone else that it's impossible for everyone else to catch up. With the new system, with the seasonal challenges that we are adding, you will still get a bit more than what you've had recently. Ultimately, you will still get quite a fair amount of rewards, but it's true that for 1 to 2% of the players, especially in the league, so about 2 to 3% of the league players, they will get a bit less rewards than they used to for the top leagues. But first of all, we are willing to further improve some of the top leagues if we see that it makes sense. Um, and most importantly, on the longer run, we might add a ranking for the season, which would also grant some rewards and help with this. And ultimately, they also get on the side the seasonal challenges reward. Even though they go to all the active players, these guys also benefit from it. So ultimately, the rewards loss should be a lot less strong. It's mostly the edge they get over all the other players that will get ever so slightly smaller. They will still keep an edge. Don't get me wrong. Even a brand new player coming in right now will still need an insane amount of time to to um, to get there. Yes, Gorka Moka, that's true. That top league players need insane amount of resource to keep up, but that's only true within players that are also the ones that get the most resources, right? So I know that you need more and more resources, but if you look at the pile of resources that the players in the top leagues have compared to everyone else, they're still having a simpler time to progress than the players at earlier stages in the game. I mean, of course, not the real beginner, like someone that just started. Of course, from rank 1 to 16, it's rather fast. That's a no-brainer. But when you look at people within the leagues, everyone has trouble keeping up with their own league and need to spend some time and effort into it, or even money wise. Like if you look at the players that are buying the season pass at this point, which is still the best offer you can get in the game if you want to progress, etc. Less and less of the top players in top leagues need to even buy the season pass because even if they need an insane amount of players of resources, they also have more resources in general. So it is tough for them. I'm not saying they have it easy, uh, but when we compare to the greater amount of players in all the various leagues, they don't have it more complicated. Most of the time, they end up getting way more resources than the others. Ultimately, this change is just going to balance it out a little, but that shouldn't have such a big impact. And as said, we're willing to look again into rewards. There are more that will come. So I'm sure overall it will turn out for the best and it will be way more sustainable for the players. Matt Remar, you're asking what about the algorithm for players at the top that cannot even reach Warlord anymore, let alone Godlike? There needs to be no way for even the players number one to get all the rewards. Um, yeah, that's one bit that needs to be worked on, but it's kind of linked to the same issue. The problem right now is that the players in the top league are in a closed league, pretty much, because it's only some guys that have been there for ages and they all kind of get the same level and the same quickness of progression than the others. The problem is, in order for those guys to be able to reach the top leagues like the Godlike, etc., they need to have more players within their leagues. And the problem is that right now there's not enough players in those top leagues because the players from the lower leagues cannot get into there. So that's why we reworked the progression, and that's why we also are focusing on getting people out of bronze, get people up to gold, get people up to platinum, etc. The more we will move people from the early leagues to the middle leagues, the more people from the middle leagues will start facing people that are a bit weaker than they used to, and they will move to a higher league, etc. Which means give it a bit of time, and you will start to see players that were stuck in the leagues just below to get into the higher leagues. And once you have more and more players in the higher leagues, as you just said, Matt, Remar, indeed, they will get filled in. The more players get into the higher leagues, the more filled in they are, the more it becomes easier for the older guys that still keep really an edge in terms of progression to progress to the next step. So that's the the main bit there. But the other bit as well is that right now there's not a lot of incentives for some of the top guys to really go for it. Like some of the top players right now are there because they want to be the first, right? But there's no real ranking with real rewards for this achievement. And because everyone else in their league is not really pushing, they're not going to push with just three guys between themselves too far to get there. If instead of three guys, it was 20 or 25 competing to move to the next league, or then it's not 25, it's 100, etc., then it gets to an entirely different type of progression as well. So that's roughly the answer I can give on that aspect in general. Okay, guys, we're almost there in terms of the fight night for today. We just have one account left after this one. So if you have any questions, it's now or never. You're asking about updates on the merchant or the clan wars. For the merchant, actually, we were just talking about that earlier. We had a good idea collectively. The idea collectively was that we could also use the merchant for cosmetics. Basically, one of the players, I think it's Gorkamoka, was no, it was Doskan. Sorry, Doskan was mentioning that he believes that the current system to acquire new skins via gems is not that great, because it's okay to have just a small chance of getting new skins when you use Eternite, not so much when you use gems. And I was saying that the merchant system is a system where you could, from time to time, have an offer to get one specific skin for one specific set of resources. And that could be anything, from portal keys to gems to an insane amount of gold, or, well, not insane, but you know what I mean, a strong amount of gold or whatever. Because if it's in the merchant, we can keep it kind of rare enough that we decide how often we run it, and we can limit it for players, and that allows us to have some stuff like this going on. So that's something I will bring up to the team. At the moment, that's still a system we want to have for the second half of the year. So I would say right now the focus is, of course, on getting the global red boss fully finished, and that should be part of the elements that would come after this. Um, the one question I don't have answer to for the merchant system is if it will come before or after an artifact rework. I would guess it might be better to have it after, because we probably want people to keep fragments and such that they have in order to update their artifacts if there's a new structure of levels, etc. That being said, I might also be wrong, and I might get told that basically the number of um, of fragments that people have might uh, push us to say, okay, let's at least get a few of those invested elsewhere. But I don't think that would really be the case. Um, no, so yeah, and then regarding clan wars, quickly briefly before we end, for the clan wars, there's no real changes as of now. As I said, we have kind of a clear idea of how we want the next elements to come. We want to get the GRB finished. Right now, we're finishing as well everything related to the league rewards, as you know. Then uh, there will be the merchant system, most likely, as well as the artifacts rework. Those things are probably what we're looking at for the end of the year. The clan wars, since we have not yet picked between the few different systems we looked at, I don't think the full release of a clan war can come this year. There could be parts of it, depending on the design that it will be. But that's something we'll get to discuss with you uh, a bit further once everything is ready. Um, can you play us a song and sing a lullaby, maybe? As you hear with my beautiful voice, it's definitely not a good idea for me to sing you a lullaby. My voice is only helpful when I need to scream and shout in a punk hardcore style, which I don't think is necessarily what you would mean as a lullaby. I can tell you that my favorite lullaby type of song is a Mosquito Song by the band Queens of the Stone Age. That would be my answer. Black metal growling would be fine. Yeah, I'm more of a my scream would more sound like screamo post-hardcore kind of thing than black metal. But yeah, I can get behind that when it's yeah. I kind of like the black metal singing, not in the black metal context, basically. So you take a band like Velotac, love it. They do the black metal screaming on something completely different, and it works quite well. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna distribute the rewards right away so that we don't forget about this. And that will be it for today. As I was saying earlier, there will very likely be another stream next week to catch up, but also because it's the summer, there's holidays here and there, etc. It's a bit trickier to keep a very tight schedule at the moment, but we'll get the streams going. Most likely, the next one will be next week already. Guys, that will be it for today. We'll keep going with the discussions, most likely on Discord as well. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll talk to each other soon. Bye, guys.